What you just saw is the game that Koei Tecmo Games is developing, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This game takes place 100 years before the events of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In that game, the great calamity that occurred 100 years prior was mentioned, but the actual event itself wasn't shown in full. In this game, you'll be able to experience the events of the great calamity.
What you just watched was Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma in 2020 announcing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and here is Koei Tecmo Games producer Mr. Hayashi from that same video.
Hello everyone, I'm Yosuke Hayashi from Koei Tecmo Games and the producer of this game. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity began when Mr. Aonuma approached us saying, "I think it would be interesting to create a Warriors game telling the story of the Great Calamity. What do you think?" The battles between the Kingdom of Hyrule and Calamity Ganon would complement Warrior-style gameplay against large armies. The previous Hyrule Warriors games were filled with Zelda conventions. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild broke these conventions entirely, and perhaps it's the same for everyone here, but for someone like me, who's been playing Zelda games for a long time, this was an extraordinary experience. It's a new, special title for me.
I'm getting deja vu because Nintendo just announced a new Zelda game titled Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment during the recent Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. The new game takes place in the mythical past of Hyrule, as depicted in the memory cutscenes from Tears of the Kingdom, the expository flashbacks that reveal what happened after Princess Zelda traveled back in time to the founding of Hyrule, where she met its first king and queen, and how Ganondorf transformed into the Demon King before being sealed by Rauru and the sages in what would come to be known as the Imprisoning War. As those events occurred thousands of years before the era when Link's adventure unfolds, there are a ton of details that we are totally in the dark about. Enter Age of Imprisonment, a game which promises to tell the quote, story leading into Tears of the Kingdom. The sparse gameplay shown thus far contains scenes that bookend familiar ones from Tears of the Kingdom. Like Zelda walking behind Rauru and Sonia in ancient Hyrule is probably right after this cutscene from Tears of the Kingdom. The chosen sages standing at the entrance of what appears to be the Forgotten Temple is probably right after they get the secret stones. And this melee involving hordes of Ganondorf's demons beneath the crimson sky likely depicts the ensuing battle following his transformation. So it would appear we might get to witness firsthand legendary moments previously confined to our imaginations. And the official Nintendo website explicitly states that this story is a quote, canonical tale. And yet, despite all of that, I have my doubts. These early glimpses and marketing copy can be misleading, as we learned with Age of Imprisonment's predecessor Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. The description in the announcement trailer for Age of Calamity claimed that players will quote, experience the emotional events of the Great Calamity firsthand, and the website for the game says that the players will quote, join the battle to defend Hyrule a century before the events that occurred in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild game. And yet, for the most part, all of these statements are lies. Age of Calamity is an alternate timeline to Breath of the Wild as we know it. When Zelda's powers finally awaken after Calamity Ganon emerges, the shockwave of her sacred energy blankets Hyrule, awakening a dormant, egg-shaped guardian in a box in her tower. That guardian, Teriko, uses its powers to travel back in time and alter the course of history. As a result, the events of the Great Calamity in Age of Calamity transpire in a very different way. Not only does Teriko bring future heroes Yunobo, Teba, Riju, and Sidon into the past, but the whole cast of characters teams up to actually defeat Calamity Ganon. This means that Teriko's meddling completely alters the course of history. The champions don't die, Link doesn't need to heal for 100 years in the Shrine of Resurrection, and Zelda doesn't need to seal Calamity Ganon until he awakes. Whatever happens after Age of Calamity, one thing for sure is that Hyrule 100 years later will not result in the events we saw in Breath of the Wild. The events of the Breath of the Wild mentioned in the marketing will have ceased to exist in this newly created alternate timeline. To clear the air, I don't think Nintendo had bad intentions here. This wasn't some evil plot to sell more units. Nintendo has always been about gameplay first, and these Musou games are typified by huge rosters of playable characters. The definitive edition of the original Hyrule Warriors game had almost 36 of them, including a handful of original ones. Age of Calamity has almost 20, thanks in part to the players who travel back in time. And herein lies the problem. When Aonuma and Hayashi created Age of Calamity, they had to deliver a roster worthy of the Musou games players had grown accustomed to, but they couldn't divulge anything more than the general setting of the game without completely spoiling the plot. So they just had to focus on topics that were safe to talk about, yet exciting.
Thank you, Mr. Hayashi. During the development of the previous Hyrule Warriors games, I was impressed with how the Warriors development team, led by Mr. Hayashi, had a deep understanding of the Legend of Zelda series. This time around, they made it possible to create this new experience by combining the well-detailed world of Breath of the Wild with Warriors gameplay. Therefore, I believe this game will offer the experience of the Great Calamity battles that weren't fully shown in the original game. I hope that both those who played the previous Hyrule Warriors games and those who played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild can experience this game.
With this new game, Age of Imprisonment, which is set in the past of Tears of the Kingdom, there are maybe a dozen characters who are notable enough to play a role in the game, and that's only if you include Ganondorf, Twinrova, and possibly even Imposter Zelda. But you know what would make a lot more sense? If Link, Yunobo, Tolan, Riju, and Sidon joined the team a la some wonky time-traveling shenanigans like what happened in Age of Calamity, or perhaps by using the Temple of Time. And guess which Zelda characters just so happen to be getting their own amiibos later this year, even though Tears of the Kingdom has been out for 2 years. There is also something to be said about the stories themselves. There is a reason why the Great Calamity and the Imprisoning War are not the conclusions to their respective games. They are halfway points, well before the climax where the hero wins the day. This isn't just about sound storytelling, it's about the ethos ingrained in all Zelda games. One where light wins over darkness and evil is eradicated from Hyrule. Can you really have a Zelda game where the heroes don't prevail to the fullest extent? Would it really be satisfying to end the game with Rauru sealing Ganondorf in place until the real hero saves the day thousands of years in the future? And that's why I believe another alternate timeline is in order for Age of Imprisonment. And none of this is to say that an alternate timeline cannot still make a great game. A story can be canonical while also containing an alternate timeline, just like, in my opinion, Age of Calamity is canonical.
Unlike the previous Hyrule Warriors games, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was developed by working closely with the Zelda team in every step of the process, including gameplay direction, graphics, world, and all dialogue. And while we maintained the distinct gameplay style of the Warriors series with exciting 1 versus 1,000 battles and a wide variety of playable characters, this became the only game that will let you experience the world 100 years prior to the events of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild firsthand.
I actually loved Age of Calamity. The scene where Zelda's powers awaken to save Link from the Blight Ganons is one of the best in the entire franchise. I can't wait to play Age of Imprisonment, and as more information comes out, I will try to make more videos about it. Please consider subscribing, and thank you.